What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Leading Off, the Fantasy Pros Baseball Podcast. We are presented by Bet365. Bet $5, get 150 in bonus bets when you use that promo code Leading Off, only with our friends over at Bet365. Welcome back, everybody. It is the Joe and Bubba show here once again on Leading Off. Joe Orico taking the spot behind the mic here with Casey Bubba, who you can find over on Twitter at BDentric. Bubba, I have the graphics switched around, and I was in your square, you were in my square, so we're off to a roaring start here. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's we could share squares. It's okay. We're all just one big happy family around here. So doing great. It's Friday. We're trickling towards 3 weeks after this. So baseball's going, but we're loving it as usual.
Yeah, we're really getting down to the nitty gritty. We got a fun outline today with some playoff prep. I got a couple of two-start pitchers for next week. We're going to discuss a couple of hot bats. We're also going to talk about potentially picking up for the stretch run. But we're going to get started off with some headlines today. And this one is right up Bubba's alley, being in the Bay Area, being a Giants fan. Matt Chapman agreed to an extension, kind of an odd timing. You don't usually see them come around this time of year, but 6 years, $151 million for Matt Chapman. What is your thought process on this as a fantasy manager going forward, and also as a Giants fan? Do you like the move for the team?
Yeah, as a fantasy manager, still a pretty solid, probably top 12, top 15 third baseman, depending on how you feel about him. I think he's done very well this year. He's not flashy, but he's going to have 20 plus homers again. Been very serviceable. As a fan, absolutely love it. I am ecstatic for multiple reasons because every offseason it's the Giants are linked to this player, linked, and they don't sign anybody. To get that out of the way right now, big fan. Big fan of that whole situation. Secondly, 25 mil a year for the next 6 years. In about 3 or 4 years, 25 mil is not going to sound like anything. That's going to be cheap the way things are going. So pretty pumped on that as well. And he just gives great defense when we already have pitchers like Logan Webb and company coming through there. He's a great leader. There's just a lot of factors about Chapman that he's, again, not flashy for fantasy. He's serviceable, very serviceable for fantasy. But when it comes to on the field and just the player that he is as a Giants fan, absolutely pumped about this.
Yeah, the defense, watching him the last couple of years in Toronto, he was obviously a great defender. I think he won maybe one gold glove in Toronto, but the metrics weren't quite what they had been earlier on in his career. They've really bounced back this season. 15 defensive runs saved, 7 outs above average. The defense is great. The offense has been there. And from a fantasy point of view, he's 13 stolen bases for Matt Chapman, who came into the season with 11 career stolen bases. So that's obviously been a huge part of it as well. I like the move as well. Like, I think this is a really solid real life and fantasy move. I'd like to see the Giants continue to add pieces in the way that they tend to, they open up the pocketbooks a little bit. So I think there's a chance they could add a couple more pieces here and make this offense even a little bit better heading into next year. But a great move for the Giants. Parker Meadows hit a grand slam last night, go-ahead grand slam off of Robert Suarez. Since his return over the last month, since August 3rd when he came back, he's slashing 301, 333, 524, with 3 homers and 5 stolen bases, leading off a lot of the time in Detroit. What are your thoughts on Parker Meadows? Is he somebody that you're interested in down the stretch and also heading into next year?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. It's good to see him getting it going. High expectations entering draft season, and then it obviously didn't work out. Goes to AAA, works on a few things, comes back, looks good before the hammy injury. Now he's returned and doing it all over again, leading off, giving a little bit of power, tons of speed, hitting for average. I'm very intrigued come next season. Like in reality, this might be the ceiling for a Parker Meadows, but why couldn't he be the next year's Jarren Duran? Why couldn't he be that guy? Like that's like maybe a high ceiling, but that's the ceiling you could like shoot for in a draft, and you're probably going to get him 10, 15 rounds after Jarren Duran, unless Parker continues to finish like this, then helium will take over. So to your initial question, very excited with what we're seeing, very interested in him for 2025.
I mean, I like the comp. I really do. He's got the power. He's got the speed, the ability to hit for a high average. I think the power might even be a little bit better than what Duran brings to the table overall. So could definitely be something that comes to fruition. I really like the Tigers offense. I was talking about it last night with Vlad. I just think that they have a chance to do what Kansas City kind of did this year and take that next step forward in kind of a weaker division. A lot of offensive pieces taking another step. Maybe Jackson Jobe comes up and looks like what we're hoping for. So I think Detroit could be a really sneaky team next year, and Meadows could definitely be one of those pieces that contributes over there. Really, really good stuff since he's come back off the IL. A pitching duel went down in Atlanta last night. One of the sides of that pitching duel, not too surprising, Ronaldo Lopez, 6 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 11 strikeouts. He's been excellent throughout the entire season. probably going to get some Cy Young votes. The other side of this equation blew me away. I think he was the highest scoring player of the day in points leagues. If you had a DFS lineup and you put Austin Gomber in it, you got some cojones, but you got paid off. 8 innings of 1-run ball, 6 strikeouts, and he picked up a win. There's nothing to read into this, right? Like, there's no way you can trust him at all, because I can't, right? Like, there's a phrase named after him. You got Gombered. You can't trust him, right?
Yeah, the easy answer, as I stumble trying to say this properly, is yes, you cannot trust him. But I will throw a caveat out there. 4 of his last 5 starts, 3 in runs or less. Like, he's not striking dudes out, but neither is Corbin Burns, everybody. Like, actually, Gomber has more strikeouts than Corbin Burns over his last 5 starts. But it's 3 in runs or less in 4 out of 5 starts for Austin Gomber. So, yes, I'm not saying run to pick up Austin Gomber, but at the same time, I'm not saying it's an automatic no. It's very challenging. I get it. It's stressful. And this time of year, we do a lot of dumb things. But if you look at Gomber, he gets at Detroit next week. I know I agree with you. I like the Detroit team, but that could be interesting. He gets Arizona. Stay far away from that. And then his last couple starts, he gets St. Louis. So he's got 3 more starts, it looks like, coming his way. Detroit might be the best of the 3. So in the grand scheme, probably not worth anything in fantasy. But at the same time, I wanted to give him a little hat tip. He's been better, I think, than most of us expect, because I think we're all guilty of saying, yep, that's Austin Gomber. Stay far away from that.
I mean, hell, if I'm using him against Detroit, it's probably because I really need the volume. It's a deep league without many replacements, but he's been kind of interesting. Austin Gomber and Patrick Corbin getting you fantasy championships down the stretch here, just like we all expect.
Really good. It's crazy.
Corbin's been fantastic. He's like a top 20 player over the last 2 weeks. Somebody picked him up and just got absolute gold out of it. The other side of that start, though, Ronaldo Lopez, he has really surprised me this season. I was worried about the innings. You know, he hadn't thrown more than 100 innings going back 5 years, but he's a 2.04 ERA, 115 whip, 18% strikeout minus walk rate. A very successful conversion back into a starter. Does this mean we can trust him going forward? Are you going to be interested in drafting Raylo next year?
This is one of the handful of guys I was talking with Ryan Bloomfield on Blow in the Bloom. I think it was Tuesday's show. And going this offseason, it's going to be fun to look into these guys with massive increases in innings. Lopez, even Chris Hill, his teammate. There's a handful of them. We know who are like Tanner Houck, all these guys. And seeing how do we evaluate this? Because that's always the age-old question. It's one thing is how many extra innings do they get each year? What about the guys take the big jumps? Like Jesus Luzardo took a big jump, and now look at him this year. Is that because of the big jump in innings, or is that just because Jesus Luzardo's injury prone? $1 million question. Now, if you want to pretend none of that exists and you just want to look at a bubble of how good Ronaldo's been this year, and do you trust him going forward? I do. And the one reason I do is he was drafted by the White Sox to be a top-tier starting pitcher. He was a very good starting pitcher prospect. It didn't work out with Chicago. Shocker. Stop me if you've heard that before. Goes to a team, works out of the bullpen, becomes very good again. Goes to a team that knows how to utilize starting pitching, and we're starting to see it again. So I like Raylo. He's going to be with the Braves again. You might have to pay a bunch for him. Like, the question is, would you rather have like Schellenbach or would you rather have Ronaldo? That's a fun one. But yeah, Raylo, I do trust. I will be slightly concerned with the innings, though.
Man, Schellenbach, I feel like I'd probably go with him, but it's interesting. I mean, Raylo is, I said he's probably going to get some Cy Young votes. He's going to get some Cy Young votes. Schellenbach has just been so good as of late. It's an interesting question. I'm sure it'll be something that we talk about in the offseason, especially with Atlanta probably going to be a lot better next year than this year. They've just dealt with a worst case scenario of injuries. Acuna, Strider, Harris, Riley had a down year. Olsen had a down year. I feel like we can project a better season from them heading into next year. Somebody who's had a great season, then we might even be able to project even a little bit better next year. I'll expand on that in a second, is Brent Rooker. Couple of home runs yesterday, 34th and 35th of the season. A 170 WRC plus puts him only behind Judge, Soto, and Bobby Witt Jr. this season. I feel like the BABIP is a little bit unsustainable, but going forward, they're not going to be playing in the Coliseum. They're going to be playing in Sacramento in a PCL park. There's a chance he hits 50 next year playing in that park. I think Brent Rooker, the batting average might come down, but everything else is looking pretty good heading into Sacramento, I think, in 2025.
100% agree. And this is one I've talked about a lot because I grew up close by this stadium. I was in high school when the stadium was built and the River Cats opened it. So I've been to many games in this ballpark, and it flies in the summer because it's consistently over 100-degree temperatures. It's a dry heat, and the ball will just fly out of that place. So unless they get like a crazy humiditor situation going on there. That's possible. I agree. He could be in for a big year. Do you trust it in drafts? That's tough. But it's back-to-back really, really solid years. So at least we have to give him some critics. I think a lot of people this year thought, oh, you can't draft a rookie. You're coming off a career year, all these things. Well, he's done it 2 years in a row now. So like we got to respect it. Plus the increased environment. I agree. Rooker could be in for quite the fun season in 2025. So could Blade and Butler and the rest of the team. It's hitting extremely well. It's going to be fun seeing how that cookie crumbles in drafts.
With Lawrence Butler, I've gone from a place of thinking he was going to be a huge fade for me next year, but the strikeouts have kept coming down. The swinging strike has come down. He's stealing, projecting out into that ballpark next year. He's turned from a fade into somebody that's probably going to be a target as long as the price doesn't get out of hand. And there's a chance the price for Lawrence Butler gets very out of hand. But I think that he's somebody that I'm going to be pretty interested in heading into next season. Somebody where I don't really know what to make of them is Taj Bradley, who I was a huge, huge fan of. One of my bigger hits of the season was probably a buy low call on him when he was really struggling. He looked like the Cy Young winner for a month or so there. And then over this last month, he has a 9.20 ERA with a 178 whip. A 9.20 ERA from Taj Bradley. For the season now, it's a 4.40 ERA, 121 whip. Yesterday, kind of a mixed bag. He did strike out 10, but he allowed 4 earned runs. I don't think I trust him against the Phillies next week. I think at this point, I'm fairly comfortable dropping him, which I never thought I'd say about Taj Bradley, but it's been a pretty dark road for a while now.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. You mentioned the last 7 starts and near 9 ERA over those last 7 starts. It's a 4.31 Sierra, so it's half the ERA, but it's still not ideal, obviously. So I'm with you. It's tough. The strikeouts were great to see because he hasn't even been getting that. He's been so blown up of late. You mentioned the Philly start. We don't want anything to do with that. And then after that, it's at Cleveland, who's struggled of late, but still good. Toronto's picking it up. And then Boston. That's a rough finish. So, yeah, you can probably move on from Taj Bradley and hope he fixes things for 2025.
It's unfortunate, but we've probably knocked enough off the price, whether it's draft rounds or auction values, that he might be pretty appealing now. And he was going to be appealing to me probably one way or the other. I just like the skills. I really buy into him. There is going to be a bit of a home run problem, which could get in the way of things. But I think the price is going to be cheap enough where I'll probably invest, especially if we see a couple more of these starts. The ERA, I mean, he had a 2.5 ERA just like a month ago. It really just unraveled this season, just came apart for him. Somebody who's had a very solid season, hasn't had a large sample size, but Cody Bradford, another really good outing yesterday, 6 innings of 1-run ball against the Angels. He's been back for 7 starts. He's got at least 6 innings in 5 of them and has not allowed more than 3 earned runs in any of them. So how interested are we in Cody Bradford down the stretch? I feel like he's going to be somebody that I'm pretty interested in for next season. Not the most robust supporting metrics, but the results have been very good. Good command. What's your interest level in Cody Bradford, Bubba?
I'm very interested. The dude's been great. Even with DeGrom coming back, it looks like Bradford will stick in the rotation. Garabito should be gonzo. But then Scherzer comes back, and we'll see if Bradford sticks there or how that goes. Maybe they go 6-man rotation with 2 kind of old injured guys. But I am very interested in Bradford. He's been outstanding. He wasn't even supposed to be in the rotation type guy, but he's flourished. Does get Arizona, which is tricky. Toronto, like he's already said, is pretty good. But then he finishes against Oakland. So there is some good expectations there. I do like Cody Bradford, to your initial question.
I'm a fan. I think I'm going to be pretty interested down the stretch. I'll probably pick him up in a couple of leagues here. I think there's probably some deeper leagues where he's still available. And I'll try and get on to the end of this hot streak here and see if I can get another start or 2 out of him. Let's switch to a little bit of playoff prep here. I've highlighted 4 2-start pitchers who are kind of a little bit on the fence in terms of whether or not you'd start them or not. I'm going to get Bubba's take. Starting with Cutter Crawford, who really just plummeted for a while there. He looked awful, but he has turned things around over the last couple of weeks. The only thing is a couple of tricky outings for him versus Baltimore and at the Yankees. You putting Cutter Crawford into lineups next week, Bubba?
I will be not putting Cutter Crawford in my lineups next week. I'm too risk adverse to that at this point in time, trying to protect ratios before the blowups happen. And Baltimore, New York is not the recipe for happiness, I think.
Yeah, I think I agree. If it's a deep league, you need volume, then I'd probably do it. But in most cases, it just hasn't been great for Cutter Crawford. It started off so well, but he really fell apart in the middle of the season. And while he's gotten a little bit better recently, I just need to be starting guys that I'm fairly certain about this time of year for the most part. A lot of these fringy guys, I'm not super interested in. JP Sears at Houston, at White Sox. The White Sox is obviously very appealing, but you got to also eat that Houston one. it's been kind of a mixed bag for Sears. Some really good starts recently mixed in with some rather poor ones. You got any interest here?
I'm doing it. I've been using the Sears a lot. He should have dominated Seattle. He didn't. Prior to that, it's been pretty good. So I'll take my chances. We just saw the Reds shut down Houston and Great American for a couple of days. Cross my fingers. Sears could like at least just go like 6-3. That's fine. Give me a quality start. Give me the White Sox start. That's what I really want. So yes, I'm going JP Sears.
Let's go to Valente Bellasso at Pittsburgh, at Washington. He's been a lot better than you might expect if you just look at the numbers for the season. Two really favorable matchups. What are your thoughts on Bellasso there?
Yeah, in deeper formats, I'm cool with it. I still don't trust what we're seeing from Belazzo, but it has been good. So great matchups. Can't hate on that. So if you want to go there, I totally understand it.
It's tricky, right? Like you want to start the best possible guys. I think a lot of people go through this time of year. Like, do you go for the talent or you go for the matchups? If you had to prioritize just one, generally speaking, are you starting the skilled player in the trickier matchups or the worst player in the better matchups in the vacuum?
Matchups. Give me matchups all day long this time of year because
Yeah.
some of these teams have tossed in the towel. So you want every matchup possible.
Let's do one more two-star pitcher, Mackenzie Gore, who another roller coaster of a season, but things have looked quite a bit better over the last little while versus Atlanta and then versus Miami, a trickier one and then a bit of an easier one. What say you on Mackenzie Gore, Bubba?
Gore has looked much better in the last 3 or 4 starts. Walks are down, strikeouts are still up. I'm going to start him. Then the Braves offense is not as scary as people thought it would be, and that Miami one sets up pretty nicely. So I'll start Mackenzie Gore.
I think I will as well. Atlanta makes me nervous, but not quite as nervous as they would have coming into the season. I think this is a situation where you probably go for it. You might want to plug your nose, but I think I am going for it, except for maybe shallow leagues where like a 10-teamer, maybe I wouldn't. But I think in most cases, Mackenzie Gore is probably a go. Want to extend my condolences. Cody in the chat, who's a regular viewer, said his father passed away. He's been missing some shows recently. So I'm very sorry to hear that, Cody. Thinking about you today. Let's talk about a couple more hot performers as we go on here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw a couple into the chat. We'll see if we can get to some on the show. But I want to talk about four bats who have been really, really, really good as of late, starting with Lars Nootbaar, hitting 327 over the last couple of weeks. Generally still available in a lot of leagues. Are you trusting him down the stretch? Is Lars Nootbaar somebody you'd be willing to pick up in a lot of cases?
I would for sure. Newt was a guy that I was in draft season. Injuries derailed most of the season. Feels like he's getting healthy now, getting regular at bats. So I think Newt could be in for a fun 2 to 3 weeks to finish things up.
Regular bats, he's only 24% rostered in Yahoo leagues, and he's been like a top 40 player over the last week. He's stealing some bases. I think you could do worse than Nootbaar, especially if in 5 outfielder leagues, if you're still seeing him out there. A name I didn't really expect to talk about, and I honestly don't know if I've uttered his name on a show this year. Mickey
Yep.
Moniak. Who
Yep.
would have thunk it? But over the last 2 weeks, he's batting 321. Even if you stretch it out over the last month, he's batting 300, 5 home runs in his last 28 at bats, playing most days, middle of the lineup, albeit the Angels lineup. Any interest in Mickey Moniak, Bubba?
100%. I dropped this one on Bloomfield last night. And he was like, what? And I'm like, yep, it's been better than you think. Problem is he does sit versus lefties. He sits versus lefties still. They platoon him. They faced a lot of righties lately. Next week, I believe it's 4 righties, 2 lefties. So if you're in a weekly league, not ideal. If you're in a daily league, Moniak's awesome. So yeah, I'd be all about that.
I think I agree there. What about Jesse Winker? Jesse Winker, who's just had a really great season in Washington and now even in New York. I think a lot of people at the deadline were worried about what his value and playing time would look like as a Met. But if you look over the last 30 days, he's batting 330 with 3 home runs. He's playing most of the time, batting 4th or 5th. Any interest in Winker? I feel like deeper league players specifically should have some interest here.
Yeah, no, I'm all about that. They got 5 righties this week in 6 games, so Winker should be playing quite a bit. The power is there. He's not running like he was in Washington, but whoever thought that would happen. So yeah, I'm a big Jesse Winker guy this week for sure.
One last one I'll ask you guys about. Ty France. Who thought anything would happen with Ty France? But going to Cincinnati, I guess that kind of ballpark can really do a lot for you. He's batting 415 over the last 2 weeks, 17 for his last 41 with a homer and even a stolen base from Ty France of all people. Any interest in picking up Ty France here? He's playing, looks like pretty much every single day there in Cincy.
Yeah, definitely interested. They just left Great American, and he crushed it there. It was like the first week he was there, as Great American played great. Went on the road, he was okay. Great American played great. They're going back on the road next week, so kind of temper expectations, but there will be more Great Americans, that I'm trying to say. So France is a good pickup. There's a handful of corner infield first base guys this week, so keep that in mind, but I do like Ty France.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big Ty France guy, getting out of, I mean, going from the worst ballpark in baseball to arguably the best or a top two ballpark, always is going to give you a bit of a boost, especially now that he's playing every single day. Keeping it going with just for fun, no fantasy relevance here, just something I thought was a kind of a fun tidbit. Elvis Andrews is going to retire as a Ranger after debuting with the team in 2009, spending 12 seasons there. He'll be joined by Michael Young, his old teammate, on the mound as they throw out the first pitch. Ron Washington is the opposing manager, and he did coach them for several seasons. So I wonder if he's going to crouch down behind the dish and catch that ball. Not 100% sure there, but just kind of a nice thing. Elvis Andrews, who was one of my favorite players there growing up, going to be retiring as a member of the Rangers. Obviously, there's no fantasy move there, but he did give you some deep league value as a White Sox last season. A little bit of sneaky value at times from Elvis Andrews. Let's go to the 3 up and 3 down. 3 up. Xander Bogaerts went 3 for 4 with a home run. Cal Raleigh, of all people, a home run and a stolen base, giving you that combo meal. And Hunter Brown continues his redemption tour after really stinking up the place for the first part of the season. 6 shutout innings with 6 strikeouts against Cincinnati. On the 3 down, Jake Irvin, who started off just really well this season. Things have really imploded for him, though. 6 earned runs over 5 innings in Pittsburgh. Brendan Rodgers, who's actually been pretty solid himself, gave us a golden sombrero. And then Robert Suarez. I mentioned Parker Meadows earlier with that grand slam, and Robert Suarez was the one who allowed it, also took the loss. Very good season for him, but today he is unfortunately in the down section. Let's go to the injuries. Yoshinobu Yamamoto is going to return on Thursday, or no, I wrote Thursday, but I believe it's actually next Tuesday against the Cubs, and I believe he actually lines up for a 2-stepper next week. Are we rolling with Yoshinobu Yamamoto in his first start, Bubba?
I'm worried that it's like the Darvish plan. He's going to get 3 innings and keep ramping him up because they want him for the postseason. So it's like, do you want the Garrett Crochet treatment or do you want a guy? Because I don't think he's going to be giving you 6, 7 innings right out the gate. So I just temper your expectations. If you don't have other options, sure. But I'm not rushing to utilize him. The Dodgers do not care about our fantasy teams.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they did. I wish all these teams cared a little bit more about our fantasy teams. There'd be no closer committees. There'd be no platoons. Everything would be sunshine and rainbows, but we're not quite there. The only league I have via Yamamoto is TGFBI, and my ratios are just immaculate. I don't think I can do it. Like if you're really, really strong in the ratios, then I wouldn't do it. If you're just looking to catch up in strikeouts and wins and you're hoping for the best, I think you probably just roll with it, but doesn't give you that warm, fuzzy feeling for sure. First start off of a fairly long layoff. We mentioned this the other day. We didn't have a ton of clarity on the situation, but Justin Steele was in fact placed on the 15-day IL with elbow tendonitis. It looks pretty unlikely that he is going to come back, but the Cubs are still kind of sort of in the race. Any reason to hold on to Justin Steele, specifically for roto managers, because head-to-head managers, in all likelihood, he's done for the time your season is going to be going for. But in a roto sense, is there any chance he gets 1 or 2 starts at the end of the season that you'd want to hold on for?
Yeah, I'm dropping him. The Cubs nothing to play for. Maybe they try to get one more start out of him, but I don't think like they've shut Steele down 2 years ago. Like they're not worried about finishing the season on the mound, which makes us question things in the offseason. But yeah, I'm dropping him. I think we've seen the last of Justin Steele, unfortunately.
I think you're probably right. Somebody else I think we might have seen the last of, Corey Seager, hip soreness, placed on the IL, eligible to return on September 16th. A lot of leagues end on September the 15th on that Sunday for head-to-head. So if your league ends on the 15th, you already know what to do there. Even if your league doesn't end on the 15th, I don't know if it really makes sense from the Rangers' standpoint. 7.5 out of the division, 8 back in the wild card. Are they going to bring back Corey Seager to play 6, 7 meaningless games at the end of the season? I think there's a chance he might have taken his last swing in 2024.
Completely agree with you. I'll keep that one simple. I'm on the same page. I've already told people to drop him. If he comes back, I'd be shocked, and I'm not expecting much out of him when he comes back. So I think he's done.
Something that can happen too this time of year, if somebody sees a name like that hit the waiver wire, they might just reflexively say, oh my God, Corey Seager, I'm going to throw a quick bid on him. They might just not realize the timing situation. They might waste some of their remaining fab, use a higher priority. So you might be able to dupe some of your league mates as well with that. Not that we're trying to deceive people out here, but you never know. Could be a nice little thing that happens as well from getting him off your roster. You get a pickup and maybe somebody else wastes a little bit of fab and some time on him. Luis Heel activated from the IL and will start today. We comfortable rolling with Luis Heel, Bubba? It hasn't been the greatest second half from him. We're pushing up against an innings limit, worries for injury, et cetera, et cetera. How confident are you down the stretch here?
I'm throwing him. It's a tough matchup versus the Cubs, red hot offense, but the wind blowing in 20 miles an hour in Wrigley, so I'll take my chances. And he was up to 80 pitches in his last outing as he rehabbed back. So I'll throw Luis Hill, but yeah, it has been a fall from grace, one could say.
I was talking to two separate people yesterday, including one of them, our mutual friend, Chris Torres, who is a Yankee fan. Two of the people suggested Luis Hill should just slot into that ninth inning with Clay Holmes and all the nonsense that's going on there. Hill's
I
got the
hate that.
injury risk. Why not just give him the ninth inning for a couple weeks? The command is not what you really want to see from a closer, but I think there's a chance, especially with Clark Schmidt coming back. They're going to be 6 men in the rotation anyway. You think there's any chance that Hill sees any work in the ninth inning or in relief, Bubba, or you think he's just a starter rest of the season?
I think he's just a starter because I think they want to keep him stretched out for next year, but I would be 100% on board with the move to the bullpen. I think it's a smart move, but we're trying to say Aaron Boone makes smart moves. So go figure that. Jason Dominguez is still in AAA. That's all I'm going to say.
When you have the chance to start Alex Verdugo and give him every day at bats, you simply have to do it. There's no other question. You just got to do it. This one is injury adjacent. I just kind of want to get your thoughts on the whole. You probably saw it. Whit Merrifield a couple days ago got hit in the head by a pitch. He was not happy about it. He started saying things that I'm not really sure what my stance on is quite yet, but suggesting that maybe there should be fines and suspensions levied against guys who throw and hit guys in the head and they end up missing time. And what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that it's reasonable to suspend pitchers for hitting guys in the head for lack of command? I still don't really know how to feel about the whole thing.
I don't think so because I don't think any pitcher is purposely trying to hit someone in the head. I've seen guys try to hit people in the back, the shoulder, like whatever, but I don't think they're ever purposely trying to hit someone in the head. I don't think they wish injury to anybody. I think the bigger matter, and a lot of players have spoke on this because we've seen a lot of hit batters this year, a lot without any sticky stuff. There needs to be like a MLB regulated amount of sticky. Like they can create the proper sticky. Players have said it's easy to create a universal sticky. Like in the World Baseball Classic, I think it was, or a different league, they made a ball that had built-in sticky, and that's what everyone used. Game on. Like there's so many things that can take place, but of course, Rob Manfred, we know how that goes. But I think doing some sort of just enough sticky for command, not for just like insanely godly spin. There's a difference there, but just for command would be tremendous. I think everyone would benefit from that.
Yeah, I think that's probably correct. They need to do something, but I don't know if suspending guys is really the way to go about it. Nobody's out there for the most part. Maybe the odd guy gets beamed on purpose in certain situations, but they're not trying to hit people in the head. I think that just the command is not prioritized like it was maybe a few years ago, on top of the lack of sticky stuff. Velocity on average is up. Pitchers are coming up younger than they were before, and they're throwing 102. So they definitely need to tinker with a few things. There've been too many injuries this season. We saw Corey Seager go down earlier in the year. It's not even just getting hit in the head. Like Bryce Harper got hit the other day again, and it's just a lot of injuries
A
based
lot
off
of
of hit by
broken
pitching.
hands, broken wrists, a lot of that this year.
Danny Jansen's got a magnet on his hand. He has for the last couple seasons. It feels like he always takes one or two off of his hand, but just an interesting talking point. I feel like that's something that we'll talk about more and more, because I think Merrifield said something about he's going to bring it up to the Players Association, and maybe in the next CBA, there is something that is mentioned anyway around that. But Bubba, it's time for us to move into the best bets of the day, presented by Bet365. Again, bet $5. Get 150 in bonus bets when you use that promo code leading off, only at Bet365. Bubba, where are we starting today on your bets?
Prop bets as usual. Not as big a fan today as I was in previous weeks, but I'm going to go with Big William Contreras over 1.5 total bases at plus 135. Really fun matchup for the Brew Crew today. Francisco Lindor's just been nuclear hot, so anytime I can get plus money on this, he's over 1.5 total bases. I'll take at plus 115, so I'll take Lindor there. And I think the Red Sox go to town this evening. Give me Jarren Duran over 2.5 hits, runs, and RBIs at plus 110. So William Contreras, Frenchie Lindor, Jarren Duran, all at plus money. Let's have some fun.
Let's have some fun indeed. I also think that the Red Sox are probably going to do pretty well. I mean, we're not exactly Nostradamus there. They're facing the White Sox, but I am taking Nick Pivetta here over 6.5 strikeouts at plus money. I mean, Nick Pivetta, for all his faults, strikeouts are not something that he really struggles with against a team like the White Sox at plus money. I think 7 strikeouts can very easily be attained. DJ Hertz, I'm also going with. I've been a big fan of his. He gets the Pirates, and the line is set at 5.5 strikeouts at minus 115. So I will go DJ Hertz also over strikeouts. And then rounding out the strikeout trio here, I've gone with Bryce Miller, and it's mostly because the line is just set so low at 4.5. St. Louis doesn't strike out a ton, but Bryce Miller does tend to work fairly deep into games, going 6 or 7 innings. So I feel like just on a volume standpoint, he's going to be able to get to 5 here. Sticking with the strikeouts across the board, Hurts, Pivetta, and Miller. Bubba going William Contreras over bases, Francisco Lindor over bases, and Jarren Duran over 2.5 hits, runs, and RBI. We went 5 for 6 on Wednesday, folks. So we're catching a little bit of fire here on the betting side again. That is the best bets of the day, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Bubba, let's get a home run call before we get ourselves out of here for the weekend.
One of the hottest hitters in baseball right now, Kyle Schwarber. I think we're going to see some Schwar bombs Friday and the rest of the weekend. So I'll go with Kyle Schwarber to probably hit at least 2 over the weekend. Let's put it that way. Between Friday and Sunday, 2 home runs from Schwarber.
I'm still seeing stars from what he did to the Blue Jays earlier this week. Triple dong, folks. Triple dong. Probably won some head-to-head matchups just there by himself. My home run call, also going back to picking on those White Sox. I'm going Tyler O'Neill going up against Davis Martin tonight, who hasn't actually been that bad. But Tyler O'Neill, when he's healthy this season, has been a pretty good bet to hit a home run. Not that he's going to score anybody else. 25 homers and 50 RBI. It's been pretty crazy to think of, especially considering how good the offense is. But I will take Tyler O'Neill for today, and I will take him for the weekend. And Bubba, that will do it, my friend. This is the end of the first week of the Bubba and Joe experience. I really appreciate you joining me again today.
Always, man. Looking forward to it. Every Wednesday and Friday, you and me taking down the show and having a good time. So I'm happy to chat with you anytime, as usual.
Always, man. Always. Monday, I'm actually not sure if it'll be Bubba or I. I haven't taken a look at the schedule yet, but you'll get one of us, and you'll get our old friend Chris Welsh back hosting the show. A little bit of a return to normalcy there. So that'll be a lot of fun. We'll figure out who's hosting, and one of us will be here for sure. But in any event, guys, really appreciate all you hanging out as we enter the end of the season. If anybody's not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, we really appreciate that. Help keep those numbers steady as football kind of takes over. Help us keep the football crowd at bay here with those likes, ratings, reviews, all that great stuff that helps the show to grow. But that will do it, guys. Hope you have a great weekend. Wish you all the best of luck in your head-to-head leagues. And until Monday, take care and have fun.